Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, good morning, by the way. Yes. Welcome back. It's good to have you guys back in the fold. This is the Off the Dome show, co-hosted by yours truly, Thomas Brown Jr., and my brother from another mother, Brock Vierra. How you doing, my man? How you feeling this morning?
Yes, sir. I'm feeling very good. Very excited to be back. Excited to, talk our truth, and we got a lot of great things to talk about today.
Absolutely. And please don't mind the giggles today. Brock has already started off the first 5 minutes of him being, before the show started, being on 1000 for reasons that I will not share on the airwaves. However, in case anybody's wondering why the shades are on, in case you missed Wednesday's rankings roundtable show, I am still showing the guilt and shame that is being an Eagles fan these days. And yes, I am aware that they have a bye week, but I cannot show my face. I am pulling a Mark Wilson, if you will, off the Masked podcast today, at least for the next 2 weeks, okay? These shades will be on. I cannot show my face right now because of the disgust and just the frustration that comes with being an Eagles fan. I just refuse. So now we got that covered out the way. No one asked me, okay? Because I know those questions are coming. Leave the shades alone, all right? Now, don't know if anybody watched, but last night was one hell of a barn burner. I'm still sweating because of how fucking fantastic that game was last night. Okay? Divisional matchup, Atlanta, Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's coming in there 3-1, one of the best teams in the NFL. And Kirk Cousins did some unforeseen Kirk Cousins things that I don't even think a Nostradamus could predict would transpire. What a night! Seriously, Brock, I want you to share with us what your takeaways were from last night's game in totality, because it was a lot to glean from.
It really was, and Kirk Cousins passed for 509 yards, as you said. You really couldn't see that coming, but I think the major star performer was Drake London. Drake London was had a massive performance last night. I believe 12 catches, over 100 yards. He really established himself as one of the true wide receiving threats in the NFL. Also, shout out to Kyle Pitts. That's something Matt Ryan was talking about during his pregame interview. It's about Pitts not playing his game, not being used correctly. And they're going to try to figure it out. They figured it out last night. Pitts is absolutely unstoppable. The offense was unstoppable. And the Falcons, they did what they had to do to win. It does suck for the Buccaneers because they were so close to winning. And then to fumble in the way that they did, you just got to feel for them. But it feels for the first time in a long time, the NFC South competent head coaches across the division. And it's going to be one of the more exciting divisions again in football. Last week with the Saints and Falcons, this week, Bucs and Falcons. What more could you ask for, right? So, very, very happy with last night's game. Was one of the first times on a Thursday I feel that I was truly entertained by an NFL game in a long time.
Yeah, you can say that again. I cannot remember a game on a Thursday night presented by Amazon that's had this kind of firepower throughout the entire game. I think the closest game I would say off the top of my head is probably Seattle and Dallas.
Yeah, that was a good one.
From last year. That was pretty good. It went down to the wire. But it was one of those things where you kind of knew Dallas was going to pull it out. It wasn't much of a shocker, you know what I mean? But it was good to see Seattle put up a fight in that game.
Yeah. And also, I just want to add,
sure,
the last play of regulation before the kick, the spike field goal.
Yeah.
The spike with a second left. Are you kidding me? Like that was just wow.
Yeah. We were behind the scenes here. Brock said it in the chat. He had said, "That is fucking ballsy and stupid." But
yes,
like, and that was exactly what I was thinking. Like, it was just like, wait, y'all seriously doing this? Oh, it worked. Y'all still were able to clock it. Okay, well then.
Yeah. The it worked part for me was kind of like the shocker. I mean, when that happened in that moment, all I could think about was that San Francisco Dallas game from a couple of years ago, the playoff game where Dak had the QB run and then they tried to spike it, but there was no time left. That's exactly what I thought. Like, there's no way that they were going to get down there that fast, and then the ref would be able to set the ball that fast for them to get it done. And yeah, I mean, it all worked out, and it led to a fantastic kick, and then obviously a phenomenal finale.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I don't think you can ask for a better performance by both teams. I mean, maybe Tampa Bay's defense, but I'm not even going to put too much stock into how they played. They were missing some key starters. Both their starting safeties was hurt, and it showed. I mean, but that doesn't change the fact that Tampa Bay's defense is playing awful right now. That was not a good showing at all.
I wish I could say that they weren't playing awful, but the numbers don't lie. Kirk Cousins had 509 yards. Like, what do you even say? What do you even say to that? They got the pass rush is just not there, and like how it used to be in years past. Like the run defense will always be good because they got Vita Vea, but then you're definitely seeing a bit of a letdown in linebacker core. Of course, Devin White isn't there anymore. And he wasn't the player that he used to be for quite some time now. Davonte David, even though he had the interception, is showing his age. And until they get some youthful guys in there, or guys like Logan Hall start to step up, I'm really not seeing how this Bucs defense, despite the brilliance that is Todd Bowles, can continue to sustain a winning effort. And I feel like there's going to be times where Baker's going to be forced to be in a shootout. And, well, I mean, I think he'll win some, definitely, but you cannot win every shootout. I think it's going to harm the Bucs down the road. I mean, they beat the shit out of the Eagles, but you know who's counting.
Yeah, shit. Who is counting? Who is counting?
I am, because I need a Saquon anytime touchdown to my parlay, and he tried to get stuck at the goddamn fucking goal line 3 goddamn fucking times. But who's counting? Who's counting? You know, I mean, who cares? Who cares? I care, because I could have won money, but who cares? Motherfuckers. Sons of bitches. Put her to the center and make Saquon run straight, motherfuckers.
As you can tell, Brock is still a little salty.
Yeah, fucking right, I'm salty. You're inside the 5-yard line. What the fuck you mean you can't run in a goddamn motherfucking touchdown? Are you kidding me? You're shitting me. You're a Super Bowl contender and you can't run inside 3 yards. Are you kidding me?
Oh, man.
Like, I know Kelsey was a lot, but come on. Like, he wasn't the whole goddamn O-line. Like, you still got Bailaa and
Dickerson
and Jurgens. Like, come on. Shit. Like, God.
Oh,
I'm gonna Jason Kelsey come out of retirement so I can win my bets again. Jesus.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, I mean, like we said, man, that game last night was just fucking incredible from start to finish. I mean, Baker played well, especially in that first half. Was fucking dicing up that defense like it was no one's business. Had 3 touchdowns in the first half. It was like, Mike Evans. God. Yeah, Mike Evans had 2 touchdowns himself. I'm like, oh boy, this is gonna get really crazy if it landed on figure this shit out. And sure enough, all it took, believe it or not, it took the Falcons defense to get involved for that game to change. Because throughout that entire first half and much of that third quarter, they could not pressure Baker for the life of them. And it showed. Like, Baker, when he has time to throw, will pick you apart. And it worked time and time again. And the one time that they started getting pressure on him and they ultimately sacked him, that's when you could tell like the momentum started to shift a little bit. So I mean, kudos for the Falcons defense for playing the way that they're supposed to in an opportunistic fashion. Now, of course, you would want more consistency throughout the entire game if you're Raheem Morris, but man, Kirk Cousins. You know what? You know what's so funny about Kirk Cousins though?
What's up?
Kirk Cousins, throughout most of my existence, has shown me that in a standalone primetime matchup against any team, no matter what teams he's on, no matter if he's on the road or at home, he always finds a way to sell you short in some category.
Agreed.
Whether he was performing well the week before or, you know, whatever the case may be, he always seems to struggle in these standalone games. This year, not so much. I don't know what's going on in ATL. Maybe it's the wings. I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe it's the swag and serve. I don't know if that's getting to him. I don't know.
He looks different in Atlanta. Like it's
seriously.
Like, I mean, to be fair, he does have a coach that comes from the Sean McVay coaching tree, so that really helps out quarterbacks.
Right.
But 3 game-winning drives, Philly, New Orleans, and now obviously Tampa Bay. Like, are you kidding me? His 2 losses is an opening day loss to the Steelers in his first football game in a long time because he got hurt kind of early last year, so he's still trying to get into rhythm. And then obviously that really close loss to the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football, this 2-time defending Super Bowl champions. Like, Atlanta, are they a contender this year? I don't want to buy into the hype yet, but I'm getting excited because they got something right with that organization.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was very encouraging, and not because I have them on one of my fantasy teams, but to see Drake London and Kyle Pitts get the ball as often as they did last night had to bring a lot of smiles to a lot of Falcons fans. Seriously. I mean, Kyle Pitts was MIA last week. I mean, not a single catch, not a single yard. No show. No call, no show. He was running cardio last week.
Yep.
Now he shows up with 7 receptions, 85 yards. It was impressive. I was like, oh, okay. This is what it looks like when you get Kyle Pitts involved. Okay, cool. I can dig this. This is pretty cool. So I think what's very encouraging is that it wasn't just the fact that they won, it's how they won. They won with offensive explosion, the defense playing just about the way they needed to be for them to win the game. Yep. And, you know, obviously their schedule moving forward, we could see how they shape up as far as them being in that conversation for being one of the best teams in the NFL as a whole. But so last night, if you don't believe in that Falcons offense, I don't know what to tell you. You're just on an island by yourself. Okay? And by the way, let me just also say this. Just because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers lost this game does not mean that they're a shitty team.
No,
they just have an awful defense that they need to sort out. And it probably could just boil down to just them getting healthy in the back end. And that's fair.
Yeah. As Paul Winfield Jr., like you're gonna suffer a little bit.
Yeah, you're gonna suffer a little bit. You know, but Baker and that offense is still moving. I mean, Bucky Irvin's fumble last night was egregious.
Yes.
Godwin's fumble early on in the game fucked up my parlay.
Oh no.
Because all I needed him to do was get me 16 more yards, and we would have been safe in the bag. He had that reception that ultimately was a fumble that was at least 18 yards.
Oh, man.
That pissed me off. That pissed me off. But, you know, since we're airing our grievances about parlays, that's what did it for me. But, yeah, I still feel like Tampa, even in a loss, is still very productive very dominant on the offensive side. They just need to get healthy on defense, and maybe we'll have a different result come next week. It does suck that they lost a divisional game, though, because, especially when playoff time comes into play, you start having these close records, especially in division. You don't have a conversation where you get bounced out because of this loss. So that would be something to keep an eye on for sure. Now, next, there's a certain wide receiver that wants to get out of Vegas.
Yes.
This guy's all pro. He's been all pro for a long time now. And he finally wants out. Finally.
Yes.
In case anybody's wondering who that wide receiver is, I'm talking about Davonte Adams. Now, what we're going to try to figure out here is where we think his best team is suited for him. Which, I'm going to be honest, is very tricky considering his contract, considering his age, and considering what he ultimately wants to do. And I'll dive into that a little bit later. But Brock, break it down to me, your thoughts on the whole Davonte Adams situation, and where do you think his best fit would be?
I'm not surprised Davonte Adams wants to trade. I think that he understands the point that he's at in his career and the point where the Raiders are at in their rebuild. And that is, they're not close enough to getting a quarterback to make Adams happy. So that's why Adams feels like he has limited time left to be playing at this high of a level. He needs to go somewhere else to go and regain that production, potentially go after a championship. So I get it from his perspective on that. I think that he might also be sour by the fact that the Raiders organization did not go after a quarterback in the draft. They had ample opportunity to trade up. Obviously, seeing J.J. McCarthy and then Bo Nix go ahead of the Raiders by like 3 to 1 picks in terms of range, I think that might be a bit infuriating for him. I just think that he wants to go back to a quarterback he's familiar with. I think that's why that the Saints and the Jets are popping up so much, because he went to the Raiders to reunite with his collegiate quarterback Derek Carr, who they have an incredible bond together. And obviously, when he got traded, that also is going to lead to a lot of the frustration. You also have Aaron Rodgers, who played with in Green Bay, who clearly would love to have another option on the Jets. Definitely would help free up Garrett Wilson without a doubt. And I think there's some familiarity there. In my opinion, though, if Davonte Adams wants to have the most amount of success, he needs to go somewhere that fits his needs. I know a lot of people are saying Buffalo because of Josh Allen, but I don't necessarily think he wants to play in the cold, especially in a playoff game, because he did so many times in Green Bay, and obviously he saw the results up there. I think he wants to go somewhere where the weather's a bit warmer, where he still has an excellent chance to compete and win, where there is a clear need for a man of his services, and should he be able to restructure his contract, he would be readily available for this team. And that team is going to be Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. I'm listening to this one. I was not prepared. Okay. Yes. Tampa Bay.
He'll never get double covered because Godwin and Evans are too much of a threat by themselves. The defenses are forced to play on one-on-one. He has a quarterback that is throwing absolute dimes right now. And unlike a lot of the perceived star quarterbacks who are dinking and dunking the ball, Baker's actually pushing the ball up the field, and that's why he has one of the highest yards per game percentage. And that's something that's very so that's important to Davonte Adams. The weather is fantastic in Florida. State taxes are not a thing in Florida, just like they aren't in Nevada, and I'm pretty sure he's got used to that. Not sure if there's state taxes in Wisconsin, but I'm going to assume so. But I'm sure he appreciates not having to pay extra money. Last time Tampa had 3 quality wide receivers, it was when they won the Super Bowl. So he knows that it has been done before, especially with members of the same coaching staff. They have an offensive coordinator in Liam Cohen, who comes from the Sean McVay school of passing concepts, which means that he's going to get a bunch of opportunities to get the ball. And then lastly, it's not an offense that's going to take him too long to assimilate to or find playing time. And they run a lot of 11 personnel. Excuse me. They run a lot of 11 personnel. And for people that are not familiar with 11 personnel, that means one tight end, one wide receiver, and then one tight end, one running back, and then 3 wide receivers. So it would be Evans, Godwin, and Adams on the field. Of course, they'll rotate in and out. But in those critical situations, you know that you're going to get a one-on-one opportunity to make a big play late because Evans is going to be covered, Godwin's going to be covered, and if you're the guys getting covered, you know that you have other weapons around you that are able to make that play so that you guys can win and advance. Tampa Bay has made the playoffs the past, 3 seasons, if I'm not mistaken? Yep, so that would be the 2020, 2021, 2022, 4 seasons. I take that back.
Yeah, 4 in a row.
Yeah, the Super Bowl year, the year after they lost to the Rams, the year after they lost to the Cowboys, and then the year after when they beat the Eagles, but then lost to the Lions. So yeah, so this is a team that's made the playoffs 4 years in a row. More importantly, this is a team that's won the division 3 years in a row. So so winning culture. You don't have all the attention on you. You have a quarterback that's pressing the ball up the field. You have a team that's in a position to compete for a championship, and you have the weather factor plus no state taxes. Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Wow. See, I actually don't think that's a bad idea. Now, I think the only, no, Tampa has no issue giving up draft capital. That's never been an issue for them. Here's my thing with Davonte, okay? And I talked about this on Wednesday on the Rankings Roundtable show. And I said this when it comes to Davonte Adams. We all know how great you are. We totally understand that. We're aware, all-pro, all-time stud, one of the best wide receivers of all time. We get all that. We do. But for me, if you're asking me what my issue is with Davonte Adams is, as much as I am excited that he's asking for a trade, I feel like there needs to be accountability that needs to transpire as well. Okay? It was his choosing that he wanted more money. He felt like what Green Bay was offering was not enough. So in turn, he was gonna look for a franchise that was going to want to pay him that money. Well, breaking news, when you say that or when you go about that in that manner, there are teams who are desperate enough to want to pay you as much money as you want just for them to be relevant, i.e. the Raiders. So again, when you get the money, the idea of you wanting to be successful as a wide receiver, knowing the quarterback situation at the time, I mean, what were your honest expectations? Seriously. So for me, you wanted the money, you got the money. It didn't really matter to you where it came from. You got the money. My only question is, what do you want? Do you want the bag? Do you want familiarity? Or do you want to win? Seriously, what do you want? Because if you want the bag, you chose that option. You ended up in Vegas. And I don't know what else you expected out of Vegas. I'm going to be totally honest. What else did you expect out of Vegas? You were in the same division with Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. So it was going to be tough to even get to the playoffs to begin with in your own division. All right? On top of that, if you're talking about production, yeah, you may have got it with Derek Carr, but if you paid attention to the timeline with the Raiders, they were already done with Derek Carr by the time that you got there. So it wasn't like he was going to be there for long. They were thinking about getting rid of him that year. And ultimately, the following year, he's gone. So, again, I beg to ask the question, Davonte, what do you ultimately want these days? Do you want to continue making the money? Do you want to have the familiarity of having Derek Carr as your quarterback or Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback? Even though, me personally, I don't understand the whole Jets thing, simply because you're going to be with Aaron Rodgers. If y'all start losing, everyone's getting fired. Rodgers might mess around and retire. And then what? You're going to be right back to square one again. So I personally don't see the Jets as a viable option, okay? The Saints sounds cool. I don't hate it. But the issue is that as much as Davonte loves Derek Carr, there was moments, even in the year that they played together in Vegas, that he was not too happy. So it's not all glitz and glamour if he goes to New Orleans either. I feel like if I'm Davonte Adams and I want to have success as much as having the production while still maintaining some, if not most of my contract, I want to contend. I want to win. And with that being in mind, I'm looking at teams in the AFC. I know that sounds crazy. Now, unfortunately, one of those teams cannot be Kansas City because of the fact that they are in division. I literally feel like Al Davis would turn in his grave, if the Raiders found a way to do a trade with the Kansas City Chiefs.
Agreed.
That is just not happening. Okay, correct. So we understand that. I will say, though, there is a team where a certain quarterback that he talked about earlier on in the year talked very highly about. And that team is the Baltimore Ravens. Now, I am aware that they are a franchise that is very privy to putting a lot of dollars on the tab for any particular guy. That's just not their thing in Baltimore. I'm aware of that. But this is a very, very fantastic spot for Davonte Adams. Derrick Henry is in the backfield. Lamar is your quarterback. Lamar always wants to push the ball down the field. The only issue is that as much as Todd Monken is scheming Zay Flowers open, Zay Flowers is still not Davonte Adams' height, if I'm being totally honest. So, I mean, those down the field throws aren't happening often, okay? But if you have Davonte Adams as your wide receiving core, you have Adams, who takes the deep threat. You have Zay Flowers, who gets the intermediate to short routes. You have Rashad Bateman, who's also a deep threat, but also can get the intermediate throws if he needs to. Okay? You have the complete total package. And oh, by the way, you would have success playing on that team. Okay? And you will get the ball. Quite a few times, if we're being honest. Okay? I just feel like, what do you ultimately want? Because if you want familiarity, I'm telling you right now, it's not going to go well. It's not going to end well. If the Jets start going on a losing streak and you're a part of that roster, it's a dumpster fire waiting to happen in New York. Seriously. If you go to New Orleans, and let's say, yeah, y'all put points up on the board, but y'all not winning any of these games, these tightly contested games, because Derek Carr is not throwing you the ball in crucial moments, that's going to be a problem too. The thing that I like so much about Baltimore is because of how balanced their offense is, you may still have those games where you get 6 catches, but best believe you're going to have 70 yards, if not more. Or you're going to have that stretch where you have 8 receptions and you have 90 plus yards, but you're very productive in that offense and you're winning. And I feel like that matters in this stage of Davonte Adams' career. He needs to win. Seriously. He wants to be in this conversation of being one of the top wide receivers there ever is to play in this game. There has to be some sort of winning involved. And there has to be some sort of huge production involved. And I'm sorry, you're not really going to find that anywhere else outside of the contending teams in the AFC. Because if you were to look at the NFC teams that could afford them, like Washington, they're rebuilding. Obviously, they're on some CJ Stroud, Houston Texans shit right now. So they probably think that, hey, let's strike while the iron's hot. And I would totally understand that. I would totally get that. But I feel like they want to keep the steady pace, if I'm being totally honest. And I'm saying that with a team that's in division. They want to stay on pace with what they're doing right now. Now, of course, they're ahead of schedule. We're aware of that. But could they pull off trying to go after Davonte Adams? Sure. And absolutely, I would love that, honestly, if he ends up in DC. But this is not the time for them right now. Baltimore is under a clock, okay? They have a window that, if we're being honest, if they don't burst through it with the vulnerability of Kansas City this year, I know I keep saying that, like Kansas City wasn't vulnerable last year and Kansas City wasn't vulnerable the year before. I don't know what defines as vulnerable for Kansas City these days, but I mean, Baltimore can only have but so many chances to get to the Super Bowl. And you have to capitalize. What better way to do that than to have Davonte Adams as your number one wide receiver? Seriously. You got to at least entertain it. So, Davonte, I understand you want the familiarity, but I also understand that you want production and you want to be on winning teams. Baltimore solves a lot of that. So, I mean, hey, if I'm wrong, I have no problem being strong. That's just the way the league goes. I'm aware of that. Of course, I'm hearing teams like Pittsburgh being involved, which, sounds cool, but I feel like you're going to get pissed off having Justin Fields or Russell Wilson as your quarterback. If we're being totally honest, eventually that's going to erode, even with them winning games. If you're not getting your catches, you're going to be pissed off. So I think that's just the way of the land. You might have to look at a Baltimore to get the job done for you. Because those other teams, like Dallas, I mean, they're not even sniffing you. And that's only because they don't have a run game and they don't know how to stop the run. Okay? So that's just the way that works. But again, with Baltimore, you have all the phases that you're looking for. You have a winning culture. You have a quarterback that has no problem throwing the ball to you. You have some pieces around you to where you're not getting double teamed all the time, which is the case in Vegas. Because who else are you worried about? Now, I appreciate Brock Vierra. Nice rookies, nice solid rookie this year. But ain't nobody, he's not scaring anybody right now. Not yet. So all the attention's on you. What better way to be free of that than to go to Baltimore and to find all the success and all the production you need? And you know what? I'm even throwing this team out here. There's nothing wrong with returning back home. If you want to end up in Green Bay again, I ain't mad at you. Now, obviously, Green Bay wants to be a younger team, which I totally understand and I totally get. But I would not mind a Jordan Love, Davonte Adams connection. I would not mind that at all. That would be pretty cool. And honestly, in the division that has a lot of wide receivers and a team that has a lot of wide receivers to work with, they could trade one of those guys with the second rounder if they really wanted to, if they wanted Davonte back. It's not impossible. I don't see that happening, but it's an option. I would much rather have Baltimore and Green Bay be an option than the Jets and the Saints. I don't know what other way there is to say it. Am I off on that, Brock? What you think?
You are not off, man. I think kind of hit everything around the head. You made good points about Baltimore. I mean, they have to worry about the run, especially after Derrick Henry's big game last week on Sunday Night Football. Excuse me. Lamar is always a threat, no matter what. So you have to worry about him. But the question is, do you trust Lamar to make the critical throw in the playoffs? I think that's the big question for him. But I agree with everything you said about the Saints and the Jets. And I think for Davonte, I think he needs to get whatever he prioritizes in order, and whatever that will get him the answer of where he needs to go. What I mean by that is, do you want a bigger contract? Do you want to play at a certain place, location-wise? Do you want to play with a certain quarterback? Do you care about winning or more than playing with your boys? Do you care about how this move is going to affect your family? If so, how is that going to happen? There's so many factors outside of football that goes into this as well. And I think that he's weighing all his options. Unfortunately for him, he's got time on his side. So I think it's going to be a couple weeks. If a trade is to be made, I think it'll definitely be a couple weeks until news breaks regarding whatever that trade may be.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and look, this all goes back to my accountability piece that I said earlier. Look, Davonte, whatever you choose to do, I don't think anybody's going to be knocking you for it unless it's something stupid like going to Carolina or some shit like that.
Yeah.
But I will say this. Wherever you choose to go to, let it be, because that's where you want to go. And do not, and I mean do not, show any frustration after that move is made. You want it out, and you ultimately dictate where you end up. Ultimately. So if you ultimately dictate ending up in New York with Aaron Rodgers, and y'all start losing, and tempers start to flare, I don't want to hear shit. If you go to New Orleans and you're not getting the touches that you want, but, y'all winning some games, I don't want to hear shit. Wherever you decide to go to, let it be because you own it. I do not want to hear shit afterwards. Nobody was supposed to hear shit once you got to fucking Vegas, because you already knew what kind of team it was going to be, regardless of whether Derek Carr was there or not. So I'm just saying, whatever move you decide to make, own it. That's all I'm saying. That's all. That's all I got. Because we know how great you are. But you get to dictate this. The same way you dictated the Vegas move. So wherever you go, it's on you. It is on you. And as soon as you understand that, you'll make your decision a lot easier. I can guarantee you that. Because you're going to need it. Davonte is not 26 no more. Okay? Like, before you know it, you're going to look up and be like, oh, man, I guess Davonte's done. Yes. So strike with a contending team, please, for all of us, please. We want to see you a part of winning football. I'm just saying. You deserve it. Just own your decision. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, that's the therapy session on Davonte Adams. Now we got that out the way. Man, that was egregious.
You got a lot of things you got off your chest.
No, because I have an issue with players who want the bag.
Yes.
But yet get pissed off and frustrated when shit don't go well, as if the bag isn't given by these desperate ass teams trying to be relevant. Like, it should not be a surprise to you that that's the result you're getting. Your team is some shit, but you got your money though. Like, what do you want us to do? I mean, so in Davonte's case, Deshaun Watson is another example, but I think that's on the flip side. I think it's more so Cleveland of, hey, look, we paid you $230 million guaranteed. I need to throw the ball more than 30 yards down the field for once. Yeah. Like, I feel like that is a flip side, but other than that, I think, like I said, it's just an accountability thing. Just understand that if that's what you ultimately want, that's what you're signing up for too. If you want the bag, there's teams that are desperate enough to want to pay you that bag. Just know that they're desperate, so they're going to suck, which means that you will suck. Just accept it if that's what you want to do. That's my thing. It's an accountability piece. But that's neither here nor there. Another topic that we want to discuss here is about relationships. Now, you know, we live in a day and age where people are breaking up on Instagram and sharing their stories like they just retired from the NFL. You know, we have people arguing against each other like it's Judge Judy online. So the ultimate question is do you prefer for your relationship to be private or to be public knowledge, and why? So what is that for you, Brock?
I prefer my relationship to be private, but with a public acknowledgement. And what I mean by that is I would like people to know that I'm in a relationship, but that's as much details about the relationship as they're going to get.
Right.
If that makes sense. And that's what I mean. I typically post on my Instagram once every year, and that's usually my anniversary. And it's a little slideshow of some of the things that we did over the past year, so people can get caught up. They have a glimpse into my reality, but they do not have full access. I think in that way, it's like the perfect balance. So that's going to be my final answer to the question.
Fair enough. See, I'm a little bit iffy on this one because I'm the type of guy who would love to brag about the relationship that I'm in. Like, I wanna be that type of guy that's like, yeah, this is mine, she's mine, yeah, we're doing this. You know, we just chilling though, ain't nothing crazy. But you know, that's, you know, this is us. This is us right here. You know, it's like there's some sense of pride that comes with that typically I would like to you know, express on a consistent basis. But the challenging thing is that as much as I would love to be that, and as much as I would love to express that on any social platform, the challenge comes into play when, just like even if it isn't public, but it becomes a much uncontrollable issue when people who are not even involved in a relationship become very A, nosy, B, want to stir shit up, or C, want to just cause a ruckus because shit is so good. It's one of those three. And so the battle becomes, you know, as much as I would love to put you on the forefront for the whole world to see, I don't want the whole world to be in the forefront and affecting our relationship. I don't want that one girl in the comment section under our photos sits up there and says, you know, oh, well, you know, he could do better than this or she could do better than this. Like, believe it or not, when those comments or those type of reactions come into play, it is unfortunate, but that's the reality of having to put your relationship out there. And when that does get into play, depending on how strong your relationship is, believe it or not, when those comments start to show or those reactions start to show often and on a reoccurring basis, it eventually low-key starts to seep in a little bit. Like, damn, maybe I do need to look elsewhere, or maybe, you know, maybe I might need to entertain someone else, or maybe, you know, we could do a little bit of this or a little bit of that. And you start getting beside what made the relationship great. When you start integrating all these different factors that have no business being a part of to begin with, you know? So as much as I would love to put it out there, and eventually that time will come. But like you said, Brock, it will be one of those cases where it's like, hey, You only get it once, maybe twice if you're lucky. I might be drunk that day. might have a whole spree. I don't know. But outside of that, you're not gonna know much because I don't want you to have any sort of swing. That is something that I will control. I don't want you to have any swing, dictating anything that could ultimately affect us as a dynamic, us in the relationship, or us separately. Because sometimes people be having these relationships out there and they just be targeting the one person the entire time. Yeah. Left for the other one to try to defend them constantly, day in and day out. Those comment fights are quite literally outrageous, if we're being totally honest, and unnecessary. So just avoid it. Just avoid it. Now, of course, if you're a celebrity, I think the ultimate question is when you're a known commodity and it becomes one of those cases where everyone knows you, everyone knows everything about you. They know your TikTok, they know your Instagram, they know your YouTube, they know everything there is to know about you. That's where it kind of gets tricky because in a way, you've kind of already involved them into your life in some way, shape, or form. And when you've allowed that, it's hard to shut that down. It is. It is. So for those who are in that upper echelon, I feel like that's what makes it challenging the most is that, you can't really hide anything. Cameras are always in front of your face. There's always going to be a phone in front of you, waiting to see what's going to be said, what the new scoop is. All these different things that would cause a negative impact on a relationship or just individually. And that's something that, you just have to find a way to navigate and to manage in a relationship that, you really think is very important. So all in all, if you want to be public about it, ain't nobody stopping you. Just understand that there are both sides of the fence to worry about and to consider. And it can get pretty rough if you mismanage it. It can get really ugly really fast. So that's something that I would just encourage everyone to keep in mind when they're going about their relationships being in public. It's not that you can't do it, just be mindful of what comes with the territory.
Yeah, absolutely. You hit it right on the head. Those issues infect the relationship so much, especially if it's in the beginning stages. You haven't really established a strong bond to be able to sometimes deal with some of those major things. So,
right,
you're setting yourself up for failure if you set yourself up.
There you go. Lastly, before we get out of here, I'm just curious, man. We're having this day and age where guys have this whole 50-50 complex. There's things that we shouldn't do, that we always do, that now we don't want to do. And there's so many different characteristics that are, how can I say this? They're not exactly the manliest of manliest things to be about. If that makes any sense. If you know, you know. Okay? So what I want to ask is what are some character traits that define being a great man per se in your eyes?
Someone that may have to rely on others but isn't dependent. Someone that is giving. Someone that has a sense of volunteerism. Someone that cares about others in a deep and meaningful way. Someone that has empathy. Someone that is able to be strong in moments where it is easy to be weak. someone who is able to be comforting when there are moments in which you want to be weak, someone who understands his role in terms of what the family dynamic, whatever that role may be, and executes it to the highest level that he can, unselfishly for others. I think those are the characteristics of the modern man. I don't think that a lot of the preconceived notions of what masculine man is or manhood can truly exist in the modern society anymore, just because so many things have changed, especially in terms of the economy and being able to afford certain things that were once considered necessities in life that are now considered too expensive to own. So I think you definitely gotta modernize your view of it, but there's still some very core beliefs that will always exist throughout time.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's more so of understanding the core aspects of what ultimately a man looks like, feels like, talks like, acts like. Which this subject is very tricky because for a lot of guys, they don't have a father figure to look after, or just a male figure in general to look after, to have that sort of guidance or that sort of understanding of how things are supposed to be, what you're supposed to know, how you're supposed to go about different situations, how you're supposed to handle them properly, what to look out for, what to be vigilant about, how to, even something as simple as how to have a conversation, how to properly have a conversation with, any walk of life, and having to handle it in a manner to where both parties are at peace and at ease and truly, are able to enjoy one another's company for that time being. I think for me, what qualifies being a great man is someone who understands understands that there is a lot of pressure that comes with being in that position. There's a lot of responsibility that you have to account for. There is a lot of there's a lot of instances where, as much as you would like to be that little guy playing PlayStation all day long, you gotta button up and be responsible as quickly and as often as you possibly can. I think someone who's able to handle themselves in a gentleman-like manner, having manners, is very important. I don't know why people act like that shit's not a thing, but it matters. Being able to be mentally tough, I think, is very important. I feel like we are in a society now where, especially where mental health is starting to be a very widespread talking point, and rightfully so. It's one of those things where you have to be as mentally tough as you possibly can, because as a man, there's going to be a lot of things said about you. You're going to have a lot of judgment towards you, and there's no excuse, really. There is no backup plan. There's no, I could always go back to this or go back to that. People, as society, they view you based on what you're able to do on your own, and doing that as consistently as you possibly can, regardless of who's in the picture or not. And, which can be a struggle at times. It can be frustrating, especially, like I said earlier, when you don't have that guidance of a father figure or some sort of male figure to help orchestrate how that would look like for you. Can make it a little challenging. I think another factor as well is just being able to know how to handle certain tough situations and tough conversations. I think it's very important. Sometimes you're not always going to be told what you want to hear, and it's up to you day in and day out how you handle it. And for us, it's either you handle it well and no one talks about it, or you don't handle it well and you end up in jail. There's no in between. Unfortunately, like there's no like warnings or whatever case may be. There's none of that. You either get one side or the other. And so, I think those factors, having to be mentally tough, having to be, having to prepare yourself for those different instances is very important. Having to be as self-sufficient as you possibly can. I know that's kind of topsy-turvy too, because that's, contingent upon what you know and who you know and how you're able to learn things on your own, which I'm going to be frank and honest with you, something that I struggle with, having to figure out certain shit to do on my own without having the guidance of someone to walk me through step by step, even though that's something that I personally need. Having to navigate through that is something that, could be a challenge, but something that could definitely be a great character trait to possess for sure. I could really go on and on. But I think ultimately what it boils down to, and I think Brock, you alluded to this as well, is that if we're being honest, there's a lot of onus on us to get the job done.
Yes.
It just is. If we want the money that we desire to be, it's ultimately on us. If we want the goals that we want to achieve, it's ultimately on us. The dynamic that you want your family to have is ultimately dictated by how we move. And when we don't succeed or we fall short, we hear about it a lot. Sometimes for some of us, we don't hear the end of it. And you're always under the microscope of having to produce time in and time out, day in and day out, regardless of what it looks like, regardless of how you feel. And that's just the way it goes.
That's truth right there.
Yeah. So, it's a lot of onus for the man to get the job done on a consistent basis, because ultimately, if you don't, trust me, you'll know that you didn't. There'll be people that don't know you, strangers, that have no problem going up to you and talking about how much of a bum you are because you're not meeting a certain standard, or you go into that event and there's that group of females that have no problem telling you how much of a disappointment you are because you don't have these certain things met as a young man, as a man. And it's a harsh truth, it's a harsh reality, but that's literally what it boils down to. So I think, the sooner that men are able to understand the responsibility, the weight that comes with having to be in that position, and the sooner that we're able to ask people for help, because that's something that men struggle with, if we're being totally honest. We're stubborn ass fucking creatures that don't want to ask motherfuckers for help because we want to try to do this shit on our own. But half the time, we don't know what our own looks like. So, it's very imperative that, not just young men, but even grown men, guys that are in their 40s, 50s, they may not have it all together. It's imperative that we're able to ask, other established men, or just men in general who have that understanding, that knowledge, that experience, for help. Because without it, you try to wing this shit by yourself if you want to. It can get ugly, and it can get ugly fast.
Yeah.
So, I think that upon many other things, it kind of writes itself on what qualifies being a great guy in this world. And notice, none of the things I mentioned involved a whole lot of financials. It didn't involve a whole lot of having the $1 million house. A lot of this stuff is mental and consistency and having to build on it day in and day out, because that's what everybody's looking for. Your woman is looking for it. Your family's looking for it. Everyone's looking for it. And everyone equally, and this is the harshful truth, everyone equally is anxiously waiting for you to fall as well, to see how you handle that. So, again, it's a lot of different parameters, a lot of different factors that go into it, and it's all developed over time. I hate this notion that guys are supposed to figure a lot of this shit out right away and to have it on a silver platter, like it's something that, you can just do a step-by-step process and get it done tomorrow. Yeah. It's not that simple. But again, it's something that it takes time. So it also requires you to be patient. That's a very key factor. Be patient with yourself, man. You're not going to get it right all the time. You're not going to have it all together in one swoop. Be patient and understand yourself little by little. Know what your strengths and weaknesses are, and it'll go a long way. And people can understand you a lot better, and people can operate around you a lot better with you establishing that. So that's just our takes on that. But before we get out of here, we got some commercials to share with y'all. So let's bring them out, shall we?
In 2006, we founded Yeti Coolers with a simple mission: build the cooler we use every day if it existed. One that was built for the serious outdoor enthusiasts rather than for mass discount retailers. One that could take the abuse we knew we'd put it through, out in the field and on the water. One that simply wouldn't break. We decided early on that production innovation would come from necessity and first-hand experience, not from market research and data analysis. Today, Yeti products perform when it matters most. Whether that be an excursion into the remote Alaskan wilderness, chasing redfish on the Gold Coast, or just getting together with friends in the backyard, we make gear that helps you stay out longer, travel farther, and live harder. Hashtag built for the wild.
All right, this has been the conclusion of the Off the Dome show. I want to also let everybody know this episode has been sponsored by NFLshop.com. You want to get some new merch? You want to have some new gear? We're in the midst of this murky NFL season. Why don't you go to NFLshop.com today and go copy a jersey or two? Or maybe you want to get a stuffy for your lovely girlfriend or something. You want to get creative and spicy. You can do that. It's NFLshop.com. Again, it's NFLshop.com. Go get yours today, okay? Brock, this is always a pleasure, man. It's good to be back.
Yes, sir.
Again, this is our new official time, so get used to this. This is how it's going to be going forward. Do you have any last remarks before we get out of here?
No, just like and subscribe. We'll be back next week, and we're looking forward to producing some more content. We're going to mix up a little bit in the future, and we'll keep you guys posted on everything.
Absolutely. Again, this is Thomas Brown Jr. This is Brock Vierra signing off, and see you next time.